Welcome to a Men in Blazers MLS pod special. Our guest today is a US men's national team legend turned front office footballing savant. His career in the red, white and stonewashed denim spanned 14 years, included 101 caps, 3 World Cups and a run to the semi-final of the 1995 Copa, a real Copa, none of this Centenario crap. While he spent most of his club career in the Netherlands, the country of his birth, he did come back to win an MLS Cup with DC United in 2004, then returned to the Netherlands where he hung up his boots and made an instant transition into the front office as a technical director, garnering the reputation as the Eredivisié's answer to Billy Beane, a man who placed a premium on numbers and stats to assemble squads that always punched well above their weight. Last October, he returned to MLS and became the Philadelphia Union's sporting director. His impact has been instant. At time of podding, the club sits atop of the Eastern Conference. We welcome to the pod a man who scored one of the most cherished goals in US soccer history. A clinical 52nd minute finish against Colombia at World Cup 1994 that instantly made him one of my heroes, the one and only Mr. Earnie Stewart.
Thank you.
Earnie writes all his own introductions. Fantastic to have you here. You are such an icon to those of us who watched US football in the 1990s. You were born in southern Netherlands, in Veghel.
Veghel. Yep.
Veghel. Familiar to any student of Second World War history as a town the Allies parachuted into as part of Operation Market Garden. Your father, Ennis, Texan-born US military man, was deployed there, and your childhood dream was to play in a World Cup. And after becoming professional, you realised the best way for you to get there was to join a US team, which you once told me was some culture shock. When you first joined them in 1990, you told me we'd train in Central Park, we'd run around, and no one would recognise us.
Yeah, those were special moments, in the beginning, and just to see how soccer has come along all these years from 1990 to now, it's a major difference.
So you would literally train in Central Park, and people would just think you were having a pickup game and pay no mind.
Yeah, we it was also to promote the sport at that time. So this was one of those things that we were actually in Central Park, and they were playing softball on the left and baseball on the right and football behind us, and we had to find a spot in Central Park, and that was the thing before we went to a U.S. Cup. I think it was just from an advertising standpoint and who we were. So
I hate that
it's
when
come
the
along.
softball keeps zipping onto the football field.
Oh yeah, I was looking around the whole time. So it's terrible.
It's always the softball guy, and they never move. They'll never move.
No, not at all.
Gonna say the winning goal you scored against Colombia, 2-1, 1994. World Cup, a game which has become infamous for dark reasons. But your goal, perfect piece of stonewashed denim team play, went down how Bora had devised it. Winalda, the link between midfield and the forwards, Tab Ramos finding one of your darting runs, your clinical first-time finish. That moment's burned into my memory, and those of so many other US fans. But I read a wonderful piece that sums up your mindset better than any other. You won't watch it.
No, I don't like watching myself, don't like hearing about myself, because I always see the flaws. So, no.
Yeah, in the piece I read, you said, once I see myself on TV, all I see are the negative things.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, it's something I have about me, but...
Are you a brutal perfectionist, Earnie? Is that it?
Yes, I guess so. I just don't like seeing that kind of stuff, because I always feel I could have done better in some sort of way, and... in the end, you have to think it went in the back of the net, so I guess it was good. But still, I see like an awkward, the way I lifted my leg, so I don't watch that back much.
When I watch it, I just say it was always Winalda's fault.
He's not going to like that. No, I know that for sure.
He can take it. He's a beautiful man. You played at club level in the Eredivisie, the Dutch league. You came to MLS late in your career and you won the cup with DC United in 2004, but you weren't impressed with the league at that time. You said in a recent interview with the Philadelphia Inquirer, "What we did with the talent, I didn't think was necessarily that good. Freddie Adu was on my team. He was 14 years old, very talented, but only practiced once a day. The rest of the time, he was doing interviews or appearances. It's not what you should be doing at 14 years of age."
No, not at all. When we talk about development of young talents, and Freddie was one of those guys, it was in my mind crazy. And we have Brian Carroll on our team right now, who was one of those players that went out in the afternoon and was always there. And Freddie, and not Freddie's fault. Let me put that first and foremost. But he would be doing interviews, and he'd be doing a press conference every day after a practice, with I think is amazing for a young kid. And once again, he can't help that, but when you're 14 years old, you need to be out on the field and practice as much as possible. And he never got that opportunity. And Freddie was really good.
We were talking about it before you came on, and I mentioned Freddie Adu, and you described yourself. You said, "Oh yeah, I was."
Yeah, I could have been his father.
Yep.
So he was sitting to my right, and Freddie was and is a great kid, and he actually came to AZ. I think it was 2 years ago, and he did the preseason with us at that time. We didn't feel it was the right fit, so unfortunately for him. But at the same time, he was a great kid. But
back then you were a 33, 34-year-old.
Yep, sure was.
And you went right to the locker to your right or left. There was a 14, like a bar mitzvah boy.
14-year-old, yeah. And he was talented because he did things on the field that I could not do. So he was a talented kid, but towards the end, you have to be out there and do things. You have to practice to get better. Simple as that.
You went back to Holland briefly, and the minute you retired, you went back office, becoming first technical director and then sporting director at a series of clubs. All of them have initials. VVV, is it?
VVV?
VVV? NAC?
Yeah, NAC Breda.
NAC Breda. You left both of those clubs better than they were before you got there and rose to become the director of soccer affairs at AZ Alkmaar. The Cheeseheads.
The Cheeseheads, yep.
You turned them into serial overachievers. You won KNVB Cups. You got them into the quarter-final of the Europa League. One-time home of Josie Altidore and Aaron Johansson. I actually filmed there with you and Aaron. And I just fell in love with the football club. It's got a cafe bar that's named after Louis van Gaal.
Yep.
You became the master of making a lot happen off a little. How do you do it? What is the dark art?
Well, one, I was fortunate to go straight from the field to the position that I had. The first club I was at, VVV Venlo, I actually got to make every mistake in the book. So I remember the first day that I was there, they gave me my keys to my car, they gave me my office, they gave me a laptop, and then the guy said, "Good luck." And that was about it. There was no plan, there was nothing there. So I had to learn there the hard way to go about my business and just reflect on what I liked as a soccer player and from the front office and try to go by there. That brought attention to NAC Breda at that time, where I went. Actually worked for a club there that did not have any money. And if I can say it this way, if there was a problem, we try to fix it today and hope it would work tomorrow. And I learned so much over there, and then I went to AZ, where AZ is more of a club where it's more about the future. So if there was a problem today, they'd look to what that would be in the future and then repair it. On the front side, it costs a lot more money, but towards the end, it's a lot better. But that has more to do with vision of where you want to go to, and I've learned to think that way. Try to think years ahead and make sure that you have a good vision of what a club is, what the culture is, where you want to go to, and actually, it's not my vision, but it's the club's vision at that time and their culture and what they believe, and then build, your system, your style, and in the end, get players to fulfill that. So
you're saying to me, you were a player, and then you retired, you became technical director.
Yep.
And it's all self-taught. I mean, technical directing is it's spreadsheets, it's economics, it's deal making, it's psychology, it's manipulating club cultures. And the way that you did it, the way you've done it so wonderfully, speaking to anyone in Europe who talked about the back office side of the game, they all marveled at your career rise. All of it was self-taught, the move from being a player, an individual, into almost a CEO of a club.
Yeah, I'd say it has a lot to do with myself and the way I believe that you learn. And once again, I was fortunate that I was able to learn and make those mistakes that I did, and hopefully not make those same mistakes twice. And obviously, I did my finance courses and did assessments here left and right to become better in my job, because I'm very passionate about what I do. I love the game of soccer and will love it till the day I die. And that is something that's so important to me. So self-taught, but at the same time making sure I have an open mind about the different things that there are in the world in trying to get better. So I'll try almost anything once if it makes sure we get better as a club. So innovation is important. An open mind is very important.
I mean, you are a man who's known for experimentation. At RZ, you were quick to explore the use of sabermetrics and analytics, to such an extent that Oakland A's general manager Billy Beane, great friend of the pod, became a consultant at RZ.
Well, the way we work with Billy Beane, and he had which is fantastic. I mean, the story itself is crazy. That we went to Moneyball to watch Moneyball with a lot of people, and we talked about the movie Moneyball.
So you went to the movie?
Yeah, we went to the movie, and we were sitting there with.
We've been the back office of RZ.
Yeah, with the coach at that time, the general director at that time, and we came out of the movie, and we actually went to a cafe in Haarlem, where I live now, or where I lived in the last 5 years, and we spoke about, can we do this in soccer? And actually it developed from there that we had thoughts, but we couldn't really put them into place. The general director left at that time, went to PSV Eindhoven, and we got in touch with Robert Eenhoorn, who actually played for the Yankees and for the Angels baseball. And I remember talking to him and telling him, this is the path that we'd like to go. And, statistics don't lie. They're facts of what it is. And, that we saw the movie and what Billy Beane is doing for the Oakland A's, fantastic. And he said, well, let's call him. I'm like, yeah, right, Billy Beane. You can't just call Billy Beane. That's not possible. No, I know him, Robert said. So he shot him an email, and before we knew it, we were in a conversation with Billy, and actually in the end it's real simple, that you want as much facts about players as possible, and as much data on players. Yes, there's the eye test, when you go watch a player and you see a certain potential, a certain talent, but then is it backed up by other statistics that you and other metrics? And for every player it's different. Depending on in which position that you play. So that was one of the things that we did here at already I've done at Philadelphia Union, is that we have identified the way that we play, the style that we play, and what the roles and responsibilities are that these players have. And from that, you can get certain data points. So
give us an example, a striker.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, I'm very numerical, and I'll look at goals.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's too simple. That would, I mean, that's a very important part of
take me next
what,
level, Earnie Stewart.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's about the roles and responsibilities that we give for our players. We can go out and tell CJ Sapong, you got to score four goals a game. Probably we're going to be disappointed, because not even Ronaldo can do that. So you got to find within your system. You have to find. We expect of him to run in certain areas when we have the ball and when we don't have the ball. We expect him to touch the ball this many times. We expect him to have a certain athletic ability, and all these data points that we try to put into that person that we want to go get.
It's what I've been doing wrong. I just look at goals, and then how the players, how passionate.
Well, goals are still very important.
How passionately they sing the national anthem. That's the other thing I like to look at.
Yep.
But you said something beautiful. I mean, you talked about how we stereotype players. You look at them. Oh yes, he's athletic, or no, he's not athletic. And then you once said in a quote, we also look at what kind of ethnicity he is. You prefer to look at the numbers. I've got to ask you, as a man who worked in the European football, a lot of US players believe there's a bias against American players in Europe, that technical directors and coaches stigmatize them. Is that?
Yes, I believe that's true, and it has a lot to do with and we've spoken about this before, is that a rookie here is a very young kid that comes out of college who's 21, 22 years of age, and then goes to a professional career. So we're talking about a rookie, a talent that would go to Europe at 23, 24 years of age and have actually only played, 30, 40 games in MLS. So that is something that other clubs in Europe that they do look at. They'd rather have that player that's 18, 19 years old have followed a professional path towards becoming better. So going through an academy, playing their games with the first team or maybe even with the USL team. That's what they look at, and obviously what the U.S. national team does, and in a World Cup or in a Copa America, that's where they'll go get their talents, and it's not in the MLS right quite yet, but I'm for sure that's going to come at one point.
So in Europe, if they're looking at prospects, one's American, one's from Argentina, and they're equal skilled, they're going to plump for the guy from Rosario every time just because of his background.
Maybe not even background, but if you look at in the history, how many players have succeeded from this country or from that country, yeah, they would right now go for that player that has, because the worth of the player, it works really weird, and not only for the United States, that's also for Africa. If you can go get a Brazilian or an African player, and it's the exact same player, but they have different names and they play for a club, once they sell them once again, the Brazilian player will go for more money than the African player, which is crazy when you think about it, because it's the exact same player. But that's just the way it works, because they've proven themselves over and over and over again.
God, hearing you talk those numbers, I'm reminded that you brought Jose Altidore for $1.6 million from Villarreal and sold him to Sunderland for $11 million after he'd scored 38 goals in 59 games with you in the Netherlands. You prospered there, but how did you realise you were in a point in your career where you wanted to return to the United States, or as you expressed it at your introductory press conference for the Philadelphia Union, how many times does a train pass by? This was a rolling train and I wanted to jump on.
Yeah, like I said, the United States, the MLS, it's so exciting. Everything that's happening, the soccer-specific stadiums that we have, the talent that we have here, the athletes that we have here, the possibilities that there are. We're known, and I know how that works in Europe too. They're talking about China and they're talking about the United States as the next soccer networks of the world, and where to go get players. And all that excitement, plus the opportunity I had with the Philadelphia Union. I wasn't planning on making this jump right now, because my kids are at a certain age where it's difficult to do that. But at the same time, once I had my first conversations with the Philadelphia Union and the owners, and the vision that they had and where they wanted to go to, and also the opportunity of I don't want to say from scratch, because what they've done in the past is fantastic at the Philadelphia Union, but actually help them go the path that we want to go to, and being able to create that from not my thing, but together with the Philadelphia Union and the people that are there, create something that's sustainable is exciting for me.
So part of it is that you're not just going to shape a club as you could have done in Europe, but you can actually, your work can shape really the very malleable tectonic plates of an entire nation.
I do have an overall picture that, like I said, the talent level that we have here, and I've heard this several times, and I hope that people look at the Philadelphia Union right now and they see all these young kids and see the belief that we have in these young kids, the Keegan Rosenberrys, the Joshua Yaros, the Fabian Herbers, that they're actually capable of a lot. But you have to believe in them. You have to give them chances. You have to let them make mistakes, like they let me make mistakes at Viva Venlo. And then you see how good these players can be. So I'm very excited for what we're doing right now, and I hope that's an example for others.
Your mandate is to overhaul the club from the roots, from the academy and the youth development system, all the way through to perfecting the mix of the first team squad. The Union, how to put this, it's not one of the most affluent clubs in MLS, but the reaction to your arrival has been almost instant. You moved to Philadelphia last October. You inherit a squad that had 17 losses last season in missing the playoffs. You arrive, and they're currently top of the table. Can you walk me through the steps you take when you get to a new club, a new setting, a new culture? How do you assess what you have, how do you assess what changes need to be made instantly? The strategic steps, not just kind of platitudes or false modesty, Ernie.
Yeah, I don't start with players because that's I don't want to say the least important because they're very important in what you do, but we did start with what is Philadelphia about and what can our fans identify with, and that gave me, because it's not my idea, it's not my vision, it has to be our vision, and I can have my vision, but if nobody buys into it and Philadelphia doesn't like it, it doesn't go anywhere. So I started with Jim Curtin, our head coach, Chris Albright, who's our technical director, and just talked about what is Philadelphia about and what do they want to see from us. And from that, we created our playing style. So we want to make sure that we're on the half of the opponent, but that we're in their face, that we pressure them. And then we actually talked about the system. And then from there, it was very easy to make an assessment about which players do fit within our system and style and which don't. And we acted on that, raised some eyebrows left and right because we got rid of players that were so-called, the bigger name players, but they didn't fit. So what we wanted to do, and we went out and got those players that we thought that were good for us, and even raised some eyebrows there. I remember the reactions of Keegan Rosenberry when we got him in the draft, and people were like, what are they doing? Because there's more out there. And we had the idea that Keegan could be fantastic, and he has proven up to now that he's been very good, and he's a level-headed guy. He understands what we want to do. He's from Lancaster.
He's the Kristaps Porzingis of MLS. But you didn't just take American talent. I'm fascinated. You immediately went out to the nooks and crannies of the world. You added a Brazilian winger, Ilsinho, from Ukrainian Shakhtar Donetsk. You found a Dutch midfielder, Roland Alberg, from Ado.
Ado, yeah.
Ado.
Yep.
A centre-back, Ken Tribbett, from the USL. Defender, Anderson Coneição, from Tombenese in Brazil. If I were to ask you, the last 5 players you looked at tape of, where are they playing? Are they in college? Are they in USL? Are they in NASL? Are they in lesser-known European leagues? Where are you looking to find the next undiscovered gem to strengthen your MLS team?
Well, first and foremost, in our backyard, so that's the United States. That's where we look first, and if it's not there, we go abroad. And in this case, we had a short period of time to put our squad and roster together. So, it's the network that I had, the network that the Philadelphia Union had. With Ilsinho, you have to say at the same time we were, it had more to do with network. We were able to bring him in 2-3 weeks into preseason and see, if he's not only the Brazilian that's great on the ball, but if he has a certain work rate that we need. And he was fantastic at that. Roland Alberg was more of the scouting that I have done in the past with AZ, and I knew him from the youth academy that we had at AZ. He didn't really get the chance at AZ because we had better players at that moment. He was so young. But we were actually contemplating on bringing him back to AZ when I was still there. And once we turned up that we needed a number 10, number 8, I made sure that Jim and Chris got a hold of him and actually got to see him play, and we made decisions from there. So,
do you feel an obligation to find and develop young American talent, or is your mission just to win, irrespective of where the talent's coming from?
I want to win because win is very important to me. That's what we all live for. That's the adrenaline rush that we all get. So it's very important. But at the same time, yes, I do want to develop American players. That's one of the reasons why I came back, because there's so much talent here. And like we said, the athletes that run around over here. So I do feel a responsibility here, being with the Philadelphia Union, that is an important part of why I'm here. Yep.
It's a fascinating part of the Philadelphia Union story, the YSC Academy, one of very few in the United States, a soccer-specific college preparatory private school. The idea to replicate the fully professionalized academies of Europe, where elite young footballers can have their education by day, but also sandwich that with a phenomenal football training, elite coaches, psychologists, nutritionists. In America, that's a nice thing to have. In other parts of the world, it's a must-have, a given. Is it shocking to you that Philadelphia is one of very few like this in the United States?
Shock. I don't know if it's shocking. I do have to say, and I'll start right now, and I'll probably 5 minutes later, I'm still busy with this because it really is unique. Richie Graham, who's one of our owners and did a lot for us, has actually created something that's unique. I've traveled the world. I've been all around the world to the Europa League games. I went to look at their academies and how were they set up. In Holland, we try to succeed in this by having our own curriculum, school curriculum for players. And actually, this is what the Philadelphia Union has. So our kids come in the morning, they first practice, they go to school, follow their curriculum, and they practice in the afternoon. And life can't get better. And I mean, when you're talking about the professional pathway and all the hundreds of hours that you have to put in, it's really, really unique. So that part is amazing. I was witness, and I say this, I was able to be a witness of the kids that graduated, I think it was 3 weeks ago. The speech that these kids did, and Nuha is our head of the academy, the school, the speech that all these kids did, they came back to one word, and that's belief. That there are people, Richie Graham and Nuha, who believed in these kids, brought them from places you cannot imagine. If you hear the stories that they had, and there are some kids that where parents had died, or they lost their brothers, or they came from Africa, and they got this chance, and people believed in them, and now they have a chance to become a professional soccer player, and at the same time get an education. It's all funded, and which is amazing. And my son is actually going to go to YSC Academy, and if he gives the same speech as these kids did, I'll always be in debt to these people.
It's a beautiful story, but how many should there be of these academies in a country of the United States size, in your estimation?
Well, it's good to know that there are academies like us, I say, and I think we have something unique, but if I see what Dallas and LA are doing also with their academies, and those are the ones that I've seen and that I've spoken to, it's good, and these academies need to come out way more. And if we can develop our kids through that professional pathway, through those academies, and get those hours in that they need to get, then we will be, like they are saying, the China and the United States, the next great soccer nations.
I'm interested in also how you approach the culture of the team and how you go about changing it. I mean, Philadelphia Union, it's not a team with a history of winning. It's only made the playoffs once in its 6 years of existence prior to your arrival. How do you make the players believe that this can be a team that can aspire to anything as foreign as excellence? And I'm asking this question on behalf of the many English national team fans who listen to our show.
In the beginning, it's about the system and style, and then going to our players. And once again, it's not me. It's more. It's our coaching staff has put a lot of work and effort into this. But making sure that everybody understands their roles and responsibilities, these players that we have, and that they understand what they need to do during games. And they're allowed to make mistakes, and every day they can make mistakes. In games they can make mistakes, as long as the next time they do the same thing that we agreed upon. And these things that we agree upon they're going to lead to success. That, together with hard work, because I think we practice harder than a lot of other teams.
2-a-days.
Yeah, we do 2-a-days, almost every day. Obviously not the day before a game, but these guys work very hard. But what's most important in that is, one, yes, they have to buy into it, they have to believe it, but two, you have to win games. And that is so much more powerful than all the words that Jim can say, that Chris can say, that I can say. You have to win games. And now that the players have, one, bought into it, two, have won games, they see that it leads direct results, and that's very important.
You told reporters that your approach with the union is one that you forged with RZ. You said at RZ we tried to think ahead. We tried to ask ourselves, what's soccer going to be 5 years from now? So let's make a decision based on that. Where is soccer here going to be in 5 years' time? Is it going to be more American, less American, and more cheaper, well-scouted Europeans? Less suburban, more urban? Tell me what you see when you look into your crystal ball.
Well, I hope, and I can only speak for where we are at, and where we see the crystal ball is that it's all a lot of American players coming through the ranks, through our academy, through our USL team, Bethlehem Steel, and then going to our first team and playing minutes in the MLS. We have a belief that these players can do a lot, and there are talents in our academy that can actually make it. So we want to make sure that pathway is there, show that to to everybody in what we're doing, and I hope that Philadelphia Union is not the only club that's doing that, and that we do that throughout the United States. Because once again, the talent level and the athleticism that we have here is tremendous, and if we can all get our minds in the right direction, and all have one vision in going forward and creating that player that they talk about, the world-class player, you have to put a lot of work into that. So I hope that crystal ball is that all these clubs have the same philosophy, the same idea of developing that American player.
We sit here in the wake of the Copa America Centenario. The US soccer program is tied up in knots about the extent of the national team's progress or lack of progress. In your mind, watching it, how has the quality of this team progressed from when you were in it in the 1990s?
I think from an individual standpoint that it's a better team. When I look at the individual talent that there is and these players, I think individually they're better. From a team aspect, I think it's still the same. Or we knew at that time that we needed to be one strong, fit, and act as a team to get results. And sometimes I feel when I see us playing it right now is that we might think we're a little bit too good, and actually play in a certain style that's not what I see within our culture and where we are right now. We're only a league that's been operating now, 20 years, fighting against cultures and international teams that have hundreds of years of history when it comes to the game that we play. Well, hundreds is a bit exaggerated. Probably be playing with rock balls back then. But, so
that's when England was really good, early in the rock ball era.
Yeah. But they have that history and culture. So we need that grit. We need that teamwork. That always has to be for that's what we're very good at. So. From an individual standpoint, to get back to your question, from an individual standpoint, I think the players right now are a little bit more gifted than they were back in the day. But we made up with that with a lot of hard work and teamwork.
Let me ask you this simply. 1994 US team line up against 2016 US team. Who wins?
That's like asking the question: is Pele better than or Ronaldo better than Pele? It's
Pele.
They're two different generations, and that's very it's so hard to say. The
so
game
94,
was,
right?
The game was slower back then, so I wouldn't even dare comment on that.
Yeah, but you had Wijnaldum.
We did. We had Eric Wijnaldum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't want to answer
Claudio
that question.
Reyna.
2002 plays 2000. No, I won't go there.
Now we're
throw Brian McBride into the equation, and he's a game changer.
Brian McBride was one of those center forwards that we haven't come across much, and I do say Clint comes very close because he puts his whole body into winning. He's he always comes out with a black eye and his scars on his legs, and actually Brian McBride was one of those center forwards too. He'd love to play with a bloody nose. He played his best. It was incredible, and when I look at Clint these days, the way he plays, I hope he doesn't quit or stop for the U.S. national team, because that would not be good right now. So for me, he's one of those players that's elevated in himself, is an ultimate team player. When I see the U.S. national team player, once again, putting his whole body in for our country, and the way he goes about, always scores important goals. He never scores the 3 and 4-0. It's always the 1-0 or 2-1 or the 1-1. One of those players that's exceptional.
But the way you frame it, like, we need him right now. I mean, the implicit in that is that we don't have the next wave that are ready to replace them, which leads us naturally to the question of youth development. Yeah. And the youth development pipeline, and a coherent vision, the lack of a coherent vision. If you could change two things about youth development in the United States, what would they be?
Well, one is the professional pathway is the fact that kids come into academy at a young age, go through our USL teams that we have here, so that's another part of the professional pathway, and then go to our first team, where now we have our kids hopefully in an academy, but then they make a choice for school. And in my vision...
For college?
For college, for university, and in my vision, being a professional athlete is a life's choice. It's not, I don't believe you can go to Harvard and become the best soccer player in the world. That doesn't go together in my mind. So, and I don't want to, say anything bad about universities or anything like that.
On this show, Ernie.
But I do think for a professional athlete, that professional pathway and making all those hours that you need to make is very, very important.
Number one. Number two?
Number two for me would be coaching. Right now, I feel that we still work with, and great that they're there, soccer moms and soccer dads who are telling our young kids, 5 and 6 years old, the way they need to kick balls or bounce the ball off their head or whatever it is. But we need, at a young age, we need very good coaches. And the more coaches that we have, good coaches that we have at a young age, the better it is. And they'll come accustomed to certain things, and also a clear vision of what do you want to teach your young talents. And if we only have academies from MLS teams doing that, this country is too big for that. So we need to have coaches all over the place, good coaches all over the place.
How many do we need, Ernie? Because the German youth development revolution, early 2000s, they realized they only had 100 full-time pro coaches, and they hired immediately 400 full-time, only to train at the young level. So the net effect was that you had a pool of players at 18 who'd enjoyed between 50% to 100% more training sessions than the previous generation.
Right.
3 to 4 times a week, elite players training with elite full-time coaches. What's the scale of the coaching problem in America? How many do we need in the United States? Is that kind of a coaching commitment even possible?
It's going to be difficult, and I think that has to do also with generations. The kids that love soccer now and that grow up to love soccer in the future are going to be the next coaches that we have. I don't believe it's there right now. And when you talk about this country and how massive we are and how big we are, I can't even imagine how many good coaches you would need. But it does show those countries, the Icelands and the Germanys of this world, the way they went about their business and making sure that curriculum is there and that people get educated. You see what happens. And, Iceland, it's not luck that Iceland is at the European Championships and doing well now. And it's not luck that Germany is always there and making the next step with their, with their generation. It would be a lot.
Another big discovery in the German football revolution, they realized that German football had become thoroughly middle class. They needed to change that and scout better and really penetrate the urban centres and find a new breed of footballer. US soccer always has been and still is thoroughly middle class. It's very suburban, underserved in the African American and Latino communities. In your mind, how big a problem is that and how can it be changed?
It is a problem, and I think Germany is a great example of they actually sat down with soccer people and thought, what is 5 years from now, what is soccer going to be like, or 10 years from now? Have that vision and actually react to that vision. And once you react to that vision, and the path becomes very easy going forward. But you have to identify who you are, what your culture is, what you're good at, what you're not so good at. And follow that path. And that's what Germany did, and they changed their whole program around to great success, because if you see the player that comes out of the German academy now compared to the player that came out 15 to 20 years ago, they're different players. They're all better on the ball, they're technical, more sound, where Germany was known for Ausdauer, for the way they went about their business, being strong and being fitter than all others. And now they combine that with technical skill, and they're always world class.
They've got enough great players for their own team and for half of ours as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, in Holland they have a saying that every time there's a European championship or a world championship, you turn around and the Germans are in the semifinals.
Yeah, in England we say it slightly differently. Gary Lineker's quote, that football's a simple game. 22 men kick a ball around for 90 minutes, and after that, the Germans win on penalties.
Yeah, exactly.
You've talked with caution, talking about German football, about the expectations surrounding 17-year-old Dortmund and US phenom Christian Pulisic recently. You said, we have to be careful that we don't make another Freddie Adu. Do you believe elite young American talent should play abroad, or would you prefer that Pulisic played here in MLS?
For the league, I prefer that he played here. The question is for Pulisic, what is better for him for his development? And I understand from an international standpoint in winning games, like our U.S. national team has to do, he has to play at the highest level. But having said that, play at the highest level. So one means practicing every day, and that he does because he practices with the first team of Borussia Dortmund. And going out there and playing against Aubameyang every day and Hummels in the past is good for him, but he needs to play too at the same time. So yes, I'd love to have him here in the MLS and that we could find that pathway for him, but that is a very, very high level that he's at right now.
But so there is an advantage to the young American player playing in the higher level of football abroad, but
of course,
only if they're playing.
If they're playing, yeah. Training is one. It's very important because we always emphasize only playing, and that's not true because you got to go out and work every single day and put hours into practice. And next to that, playing is very important. The tricks and trades that you've learned through the week, you have to be able to showcase them on a Saturday or Sunday.
So we asked Philadelphia Union fans if they had questions. They all essentially had many versions of the same two. And the first is, Earnie, when will the Union win MLS Cup?
If it's up to me, we're going to win this year. And I feel you always have to shoot for the highest. And then in the end, you can sit back, evaluate what went wrong. But to just say now we want to reach the playoffs. That's the great thing about the United States and the playoff system that we have. We actually went through that with DC United at the same time. Is that we made the playoffs, but that was about it, and we became MLS champs. So
you struggled that season. There was a dark start.
Oh yeah, we did not do well at all, and then we had like a big blowout one day, which led to
words
the MLS
in the locker
Cup.
room.
Yeah, oh yeah, we had some major words in the locker room.
Words from Earnie Stewart.
He was amongst them, yeah. And it led to the MLS Cup, which was great. And having said that, that's what we have right now too. Once you get into that playoff, you can become champion. And why not? But only to say we're going to reach the playoffs. A lot of times you see, you reach the playoffs and then all of a sudden you go into that dip because you reach your goal. So I think it's healthy to say that we want to become MLS champs this year. So,
I love America. Second question. Different version, same question from many, many listeners. How would the Union fare in their Eredivisie?
Also pretty much every MLS team in the Eredivisie are two different concepts. If you talk about MLS and the Bundesliga, those two match a little bit better, and obviously the Bundesliga is a lot higher than we are right now, but we have to grow there. So it'd be difficult. I think it would be and I'm not talking about Ajax, PSV, Feyenoord, AZ, those top 4 or 5 teams, but all those other teams, it would be very difficult for them to come here and win games. But on the other hand, it would be very difficult for these teams to go over there and win games. So it's such a total different game here, where we have the athletes, we have a lot of stamina in what we do, and everything goes 180 miles an hour. And in Holland, it's very technical and it's very tactical. So they're two different things. I believe for a lot of teams, it would be very difficult for them to come over here, the FC Groningers and the NAC Breda's, to come over here and win games against an MLS team. But I also think it would be very difficult for a lot of teams in the MLS to go to the Eredivisie and win games over there.
Sunil Gulati's listening to this pod and is dreaming of a tournament where just MLS teams play Eredivisie head-to-head. It'd be called the Europa League Centenario.
Yeah.
It's coming to America very soon. By the way, talking to you, Earnie, it does make me want to hold a conference about what will American soccer look like in 5 years' time. I just love that concept. I love that conversation, and I know our listeners will probably feel incredibly enthused about that notion also. But last question from me. When I first interviewed you, you're on the phone in the Netherlands, and he said something beautiful. We were chatting about the 94 World Cup and your arrival on this squad, in this team. And you described the joy that you experienced pulling on the United States jersey as a player. And it was a quote so poetic, I think about it often. You said, "My life is very much Dutch. I have a Dutch wife, a daughter who speaks Dutch, most of my friends as well. But somehow, when I came back from playing with the United States national team, I felt taller, felt better about myself and my life." Now you're back here on these shores, growing the game in Philadelphia, in the United States, in MLS. Do you feel those same feelings?
Yes, I do. And I think that goes back to my younger years here in the United States, but also in Holland, being in the American school and standing up every single morning and pledge allegiance to the flag. That has always stayed within me. So I was very proud, and my most proud moment of all. And everybody always talks about goals, but my most proud moment of all was to lead the U.S. national team out as captain against Portugal in the 2002 World Cup. That for me was the ultimate. I'd always dreamed about that, being able to do that. And I remember the first day that, or not the first day, but when Bruce told me, "You're going to be captain."
Bruce Arena.
Bruce Arena.
Against Figo's Portugal.
Against Figo's Portugal, that, the dignitaries come out for the first game and you have to introduce all the players. And I was like, I was so nervous right before a big match that I would forget somebody's name.
It's just Sepp Blatter. Your own team's name.
Yeah, my own team's name. So I had to introduce the other 10 players, and I managed. So I got all the names right. But I remember I was nervous for that. But that for me was a very proud moment. So I've always enjoyed playing for the U.S. national team, and all those words that you just said, that I did feel that, and great.
You've made this a perfect segue into the July 4th weekend for me and so many of our listeners. Earnie Stewart, we wish you